Howdy, howdy.
That was good. Yes, Cabbage.
What's up, everybody?
At a reasonable time.
Start the show coughing. That's great.
Jay Cameron works at Meds with us as a buyer. We're trying to get him on. This is kind of a redo. When we were here in Lowell last time, we meant to have him and discuss some things when we were here too. So it came together again to happen. So here we are. Anton has been on for a couple of rounds, but back today, and we can get an update on the kind of stuff that you're working on. Of course, a lot of veteran issues and a lot of good projects in place to help that. And then, of course, Rick.
Rick the coughing one.
Enough said.
Yeah.
It's been in the news pretty much. A lot of us got maybe a little bit too giddy. I'm not sure, but didn't mind hearing about problems for Skymint. One of the big money interests that has come to town and proceeded to go about things in ways that aren't, acceptable to in many ways, and try to peel back existing rights. Believe that if they hurt other systems or other cannabis activity around them, they're going to entice that business in their direction, and just a lot of ignorance a lot of the big money interests have, and longevity of it. And we heard that they were in receivership and things weren't looking good and they're heavily in debt and all that kind of stuff. I mean, they didn't garner a lot of sympathy from many of us, and I know that's been batted around a little bit. So thought maybe we would talk about that and get people up to date on it. Basically what happened. I don't know if Rick, if you mind kind of giving an overview of that situation, and we can talk about it.
We'll run that down. Well, most of you know that the MMFLA was the Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act. That was the medical marijuana business program that started passed in 2016 and launched businesses in 2017. And Green Peak was one of those businesses that launched in 2017 under the medical program. They immediately began to attack things like having caregiver cannabis in the commercial market and called commercial or cannabis made by caregivers poison and untested and terrible. They really made a big stink out of it. In fact, had actually a rally at the Capitol itself. We responded in kind, naturally defending caregivers as we do. When it was a medical only system, yes, those were the big source. So 2018, we passed the legalization law. Green Peak changed their name from Green Peak to Skymint because their brand was so badly damaged from the negative things that they had said previously and the way that we responded to it. And they've just not been a good actor ever since. They really have never shied back from their position about being an anti-caregiver and anti-patient company. Home cultivation. Josie will tell you this is another company that just doesn't really contribute a lot to some of the charitable organizations that we have in our community. So we really do see a lot of animosity from the community itself towards that particular company. As many companies did in the early days of the game, they had to get capital in order to start. And capital for a cannabis company comes at a really high price because there's so much risk involved, and it's a foreign substance to a lot of traditional lenders. So they had to make some really bad business decisions in order to get the funding to be able to jump right out. The concept was sound. If you corner the market, if you get so many stores that you dominate your industry, you really do benefit, hugely. But they were never going to be large enough to do that, not in a state as big as Michigan with an open licensing scheme. So fast forward now to 2022, it seems as if Jeff Radway of Skymint, he's the CEO, is having quite a bit of difficulty in his office. He had a mistress that quit and sued them. They had to pay her off. He has a mistress who's in charge of their director or their sales operations. He promotes her to a higher pay position, higher salary position, while still having an affair. These are all proven by court documents. It's not just my speculation. Radway is reported to Human Services by his chief financial officer, who obviously sees all of the stuff going down. Radway responds by firing the chief financial officer and then firing the director of human resources, both of whom sue for wrongful discharge and win, and they get huge golden parachutes and big pieces of paper that says keep your mouth shut about what just happened. So Radway is using Green Peak to pay off all of these lawsuits that he's having to settle for his bad behavior. Meanwhile, his stores are not doing very well. They went from doing about $340,000 a day down to about $189,000 a day. And that's a huge drop, especially when you have bills to pay and that gigantic cultivation facility in Diamonddale, plus having more cultivation facilities in the route. They had to borrow multiple times from lenders in 2022 in order to keep the company afloat. 70 million here, 8 million there. Then they decided to buy 315 Cannabis. 315 Cannabis was a nice little, I think, 6, 8, 9 store chain here in Michigan. They had to borrow a lot of money to do that. They borrowed specifically from Tropics, $70 million, and then also another company called Meridia for $8 million. But they made the 315 purchase. But guess what? The 315 purchase hasn't technically gone through yet, according to Crane's Detroit Business, because the 315 people investigated Green Peak and decided that they were not nearly as worth nearly as much money as they had claimed based on current market conditions, and that would require a renegotiate. So they borrowed all that money and it's already there, and 315 is not theirs. There were $5 million in the hole, $5.8 million in the hole for taxes to the state of Michigan that they had to borrow additional money to cover. And then just earlier this year, or this month itself, March, they are $4 million in the hole for taxes going forward to the state of Michigan. These centers collect both sales tax and excise tax, which have to be reported on a regular basis and turned in. As a result, the creditors have sued Skymint in order to get their money back, and the court has agreed to put Skymint in something called receivership. Now, the two, Tropics and the other one for $8 million, they have proven to the court that there's a likelihood that the assets that they're trying to see will depreciate or be depreciated by the tenant, which is Skymint, and they're going to court supervise the remainder of Skymint's life, and that may mean that they have to liquidate stores and get rid of licenses and sell things out in order to make their obligations. And some of these obligations are super long-term obligations too. One of the loans they took out for millions of dollars has a 12% interest rate compounded monthly. 12% on a monthly basis. No one in their right mind would make that deal. So Skymint, who was a rat bastard motherfucker from the moment that they stepped into this industry, really is having extreme financial circumstantial problems from internal issues as well as from bad business models projecting prices per ounce and per pound that certainly are not realistic any longer. So we celebrate their demise to a certain degree. We don't ever want to make joy from another man's, misery. But by the same token, bad actors need to get out of the industry. And when bad actors get bounced out of the industry, especially through their own stupidity, I think we're okay to crack a beer over that one.
So the Canadian company that they owe $127 million to has a statement in one of the follow-up articles about how they're still planning on seeing this through and restructuring and holding on to as many employees and key management as they can and all this type of stuff. But it just doesn't seem like it's that's too challenging. Easy to say.
Well, if Skymint at one point was losing $5 million a month. So if you don't have a management team that can come in and turn something like that around and turn it into a positive balance sheet instead of a negative, then there's no reason to keep the doors open any longer. All you're doing is accumulating greater debt. And that means that the people like Tropics and Meridia, who are owed all this money, $172 million right now to Tropics and $8 million plus interest to Meridia. If all they're going to do is lose money by keeping the stores open, they will not.
Somebody made the point, fine that they finally rub themselves out completely, but I think there's 600 employees ultimately that are going to be displaced at different times, probably during this process.
Yeah, it's tragic when people lose their jobs, but we have to close prisons that aren't useful anymore, and that costs people jobs. We have to, we have to shut down mines when the ore runs out, and that's tragic. Look at what's happening in the coal mines in Kentucky. Those people are devastated by unemployment, but that's just the natural way. That's the natural cycle of business. So I'm sorry that you're losing your jobs, but I am still happy that Skymint, eat a bag of dicks.
Well, I mean, there's this emerging industry, which we talked about before, and paid attention to labor in these types of scenarios, and there's nothing in place. And,
Yeah.
had we paid
Here's
more
what-
attention to this kind of stuff, it might not have been as rough.
One thing we know is that this was a $2.3 billion industry last year. Director Hanna was on my show 420 Post and made the prediction that he thinks it'll be a $2.85 billion industry in fiscal 2023. So we're still on the improve. And whether Skymint is there or Mint Sky is there, it doesn't matter. Someone will be there to fill that gap because there's that need. Plus, there's a huge oversupply problem here in the state of Michigan too. And if Skymint were to stop producing cannabis at their big facilities, by the way, their creditor is trying to have them evicted from that Diamonddale property for failure to pay rent. So eviction proceedings are already begun there. So that's really bad. That's really bad when you're looking at that. That will actually do nothing but help the cannabis industry as we have a little bit less supply in the chain.
Yeah, from someone who obviously doesn't look at their financial statements and is just kind of an outsider understanding that they're flooding the market with not high quality cannabis at an extent that's not easy to grasp for most of us to understand. The amount of pounds is just unforeseeable. So for them to just operate with such disregard for burn money and their investors' capital and so on and so forth, it almost shocks me that they didn't see this one coming. The numbers that you speak on, the burn money for each month, it's just shocking just to see that mismanagement run amok. And I feel certainly for those 600 plus employees that don't have the tools, show up, don't have a job. It's insane.
There's about 1.2 or 1.3 million cannabis plants in the regulated market system right now. So when we talk about Skymint's facility going offline, losing 20, 24, 27,000 plants, it's a lot of plants, but as a percentage of the whole, it's really not hugely significant. I'm not thinking that we're going to see any kind of a significant dip, but as Jake mentioned, I mean, some of the stuff coming out of the Skymint facility has been some of the worst stuff that's on the marketplace itself. And this is what happens when you're a company burning through $5 billion in cash a month. You're hiring poor people who don't really know what they're doing. You're skimping on newts. You're doing all those things that result in poor production, and probably irradiating all your shit in order to get the white powdery mildew and stuff off of it. So.
Yeah, there's something kind of ironic. Like corporate America has spent decades, since our inception really, to create legislation and laws to tailor to themselves to make sure that they profit. And then when you take that same corporate model and you translate it to an industry that falls outside the law federally, it doesn't work. And the irony there is that they tried to pull the same old bullshit that every other corporate asshole in the world has done to try and profit off of its citizens that they're catering to. It didn't work. There is no bankruptcy protection. There is no protection, motherfuckers. You will sink to the bottom of the ocean.
That
and
12
nobody's going to save you.
That interest rate monthly sounds suspect. Like we know we're not coming through on this. We'll give you whatever terms you want in order to get to this money.
I was having this conversation with Brian Basor, and what he said was, if you plan on selling in 2 years, that's the kind of deal you make.
Yeah,
if you're not going to have to satisfy the long-term duration of the program, because you're going to just flip the company and make bread, then that is something you would do. And guess what? They were never able to flip the company.
No. So I just wanted to reiterate what Trish is saying here. Tropics told Railway that they would protect him personally. I don't know where that information comes from, but
I saw that in the Cranes article, or in
there you go. Okay.
It might have been in a Green Market Report article. I'm not sure, one of those, but I did read something like that too. Although I'll take care of you on the back end You can't really trust that, right? I mean, if there's no money to take care of you, if Tropics doesn't collect their whole $172 million, it's going to really suck if they only get 100 of that, and they still have to give Radway some also. He lost them $72 million, but they got to still feed his ass? No, I don't think I'd trust that. Not even a little bit. Richard Farr says, where's the Chinese illegal grows? Apparently in Oklahoma.
In Oklahoma, yeah, I was gonna say that sounds like that.
Whoa. I was very shocked to read an article that said about 85% of all the illegal cultivation facilities in Oklahoma were run by Chinese nationals or Mexican cartels. And I really thought of Oklahoma for a very long time as one of these bastions of freedom where there was no rules and you could go there and try and do your own thing. And some people were successful, a lot of people weren't. But really, I'm quite surprised to read that.
And the reality is, with a lot of that, we're not just talking about cannabis. There's all kinds of gross stuff that goes with the way that the people that are working for those entities are treated, and human trafficking and all kinds of it's not about cannabis at that point. It's about the nasty shit that goes with it.
Drink stream water, right? Yeah, I mean, the stories from California are pretty horrible of some of the camps that they've run across. And of course the natural resources are crushed when they divert stream flow in order to water their field. That doesn't benefit anyone for that. No one should go to jail for plant. Nobody should. But some people should go to jail for, running crazy grow operations where people are treated like prisoners. And even though you're growing our plant, you're doing it in a way that's just so heinous. Yeah. Some people should go to jail.
I think Richard's right. Probably a lot of propaganda in Oklahoma for those who are in opposition.
Yep. Well, I mean, but they have some statistics to back it up, though. They have some history to back up what they'd said. So. This is not.
But yeah, I get it though.
But yes, Richard's right. I mean, they wanted to defeat the legalization bill, which they did, and
so they presented it in a certain way, and it's sensational. And people,
if you portray the medical program as an abject failure, you give no one any reason to go forward with a legalization bill.
Yeah. In Legal Nifty, Stacy, again reiterated the employee displacement.
No, it's a natural part of business. It's sad, but businesses come, businesses go, and people relocate themselves. The beautiful thing is, as I mentioned, we're still in the middle of an increasing industry here. Illinois just got decreased on their interstate commerce. California, Colorado, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, all of them having year-over-year declines in sales, not increases. So as sad as I am for some of the Skymint people that might lose their jobs, I feel like in Michigan, they will rebound. There is opportunity.
I hope that they do, but I still believe that we lack attention in that area. And these scenarios were likely and could have been given some forethought and created a little easier scenario for a lot of people, just knowing that this time was going to come. But
well, think about this though, and you have a lot of retail locations out there that might just be sold to someone else. Common citizen might sweep in and grab up 10 Skymint locations, and ideally,
they have to start paying their employees first. I know that was just an example, by the way, but I thought I'd throw that dig in. They're not paying their employees, that you might have heard recently.
Common citizen?
Yeah.
Where?
Oh, you haven't seen that, Rick? Yeah,
I did not. It's Mike Elias. Bad boy.
Yeah, there was all kinds of social media posts. Somebody was a little irritated that the employees weren't getting paid. I did see something though that they ended up paying them, or I don't know how that all shook out, but I did see a couple threads that said that they did end up getting paid, but well, who knows?
But the fact is, though, to delay pay to your people, to not pay them on a regular schedule and a regular time, first of all, it's not legal. You have to pay them a compensation for the delay. And secondly, what does that say about the organization level of the company involved? I mean, really, you can't meet basic payroll? You're in trouble, bro.
Not to mention the pissed off employees that are going to fuck your operation up because you're not paying them. I mean, I would think why show up?
What do people do as soon as they leave a job? They just bitch about their former employer, right? That's what they do all the time. And they spill every secret that they know about that little organization. And that's not what you want. You don't want people running around there dragging you through the mud because you didn't pay them properly. Take care of folks. I mean, for your own self-preservation, if not for the fact that it's legally required. And it's a contract. Employer-employee, that's a contract, okay? I'm going to give to you what you expect from me, and you do this one thing. You drop this money in my bank every fucking week, and you don't fail in that. That's the only thing you got. Make sure I have health insurance and drop my pick. And when you can't make that, it's hard to regain respect from your employees when you fail payroll. That's a bad one. And can you go back to the previous comment where it says, I think everybody's struggling right now? Baked Tater says, I think they're all struggling. So true. Everybody is. As soon as new investors quit giving money, we'll see a lot more of this. It's true. Jake, you get around to a lot of places, but you also are somebody who has a lot of insider knowledge. You're seeing a lot of struggling companies right now, aren't you?
Unfortunately, yeah. Unfortunately, it's definitely a tough market. And just with the CRA data coming out every month, that doesn't cease to amaze me how cheap the price per ounce is to the customer. You know, just this last month coming in at $80 an ounce, I believe.
Yeah.
So
waiting for February's data too. It might even be lower when February comes out.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely. You know, it's hard to see. You know, some people struggle, especially when there's extenuating circumstances like a test result coming in at 16% when that test result has consistently been over 20% on that same cultivar, and now as a result they're having to discount product because, you know, the COAs dictate, you know, price point, sell through at the store, and so on and so forth. So I can certainly,
It's reality that is still cared about in the marketplace. No matter
100%.
philosophically what we think about it, it's a reality.
That's true.
Yeah, so the grow room might have not skipped a beat. You know, the drying and curing process might have not skipped a beat, but for one reason or another, the test results came back low, and, you know, I can definitely see the ramifications downstream. You know, just from circumstances that, you know, it's definitely hard to control. So yeah, I see it. I'm also seeing, you know, ounces for 25 to 40. Yeah, it's an abundance of flower at this point.
Saturated.
It's a concern to not take on flower that has been neglected and is, you know, really just a bad deal for the customer, even at a cheap price point. But there is good flower at you know, $25 to $40 an ounce from outdoor, but it's just not what the majority of our customers are smoking. Out, so the majority of customers are coming in looking for indoor flower. But yeah, there's a lot in the market, and it isn't necessarily correlated with everyone seeing super abundant performance and so on and so forth.
Do you see retail struggling or cultivation struggling more? Which one would you say is taking the bigger hit right now? I'm assuming processing and transport and testing are all kind of stable at this point because they're necessities. But I guess maybe that's an assumption I should ask you about, because you're far more knowledgeable than I.
You're incredibly knowledgeable. You got a lot under your belt, and I just try to keep a pulse, I guess, on a few vendors here and there. But from what I see is growers probably having the hardest time with sell through. I think if retailers are quick on their feet and they don't over purchase, they keep their vault lean, they can adapt to market fluctuations in a better way. That being said, I think ultimately, you know, being on the lookout for you know, the right deal, the right products, the right partnerships is definitely a good rule of thumb, and yeah, that's a way for both cultivators and dispensaries to work together and get through this process along with processors and so on and so forth. So yeah, what I also see sometimes being an issue is engaging in like futures for distillate. So if people are, you know, intaking distillate on the open market and not necessarily creating it themselves, but they're engaging in like, you know, filling up carts or disposables or so on and so forth. You know, when the price of distillate increases drastically, they could be in a good position if they intaked a lot of distillate prior to that increase. But as distillate goes from 1,500 to 4,000, essentially in 3 weeks, it's hard to continue. It's virtually impossible to continue the same price points that you were operating on just 3 weeks prior when you engage in that kind of distillate futures trading. That's, I guess, the easiest way to put it.
Was doing an interview with someone who said after the Fuego raid here in Michigan, where some illegal distillate was found, and the director Hannah made some very bold statements about interdicting distillate coming in from other states, and that actually did have an effect on the price of distillate in the market. Did you happen to notice that, Jake?
100%, almost overnight. Yeah.
So the threat of enforcement action against those illegal actors actually sent a ripple of change through the system.
I think the enforcement from the CRA is weighing heavy on some potential bad actors for sure. And I don't think that it is a coincidence that you see that kind of press release with regards to Fuego products. And then, people coin the Fuego effect with the subsequent increase in distillate prices that was associated with that license getting suspended.
It's got a term
for alleged misconduct, as you mentioned.
This all indicates, by the way, the Fuego effect is just one indicator of the volatility that we still have here in Michigan. We feel like there's a lot of downward pressure on pricing, and that's true, there is, but it's still responsive to market forces and newsworthy issues. So I'll say this, that if there had been some movement on a federal level to take away 280E and make our stores and our industry more profitable, Radway never would have been in that kind of financial trouble, probably. Right. They would have maybe been able to save themselves like that. But that's a kind of pressure that we still have to deal with now. And it's so uncertain as to when that's going to come out.
I want to say to Dabs for clarity that we weren't saying that Skymint wasn't paying their employees. We were saying that Common Citizen wasn't paying their employees.
Common Citizen was the one. No, Skymint did not do that.
And that was alleged via social media. Nothing came out specifically from Common Citizen. They were comments made by, I believe, someone who worked there or used to work there or whatever. So it wasn't, we're not specifically saying.
There was something, and I don't know who said it. It was like, hey, it was the paychecks processing company, whichever they were using. And they were asked, and, they denied it was their issue. So I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Or who's saying what.
Anything can really interrupt those. Yeah. Anything can interrupt those. A bank thing, somebody fucking with your account, like you said, a check processing company. Anything could result in a delay that doesn't really, imply that the fitness of the company is at risk. But I think, as we've talked about today, the fitness of all cannabis companies in the state of Michigan are to be questioned.
As for the price of distillate, I believe it was at its lowest in July. So yes, it has been going up.
Yeah, but there's, like we talked about earlier, what's the first thing an ex-employee does? Start talking shit about his former boss. So you always have to take any of those internet rumors with a grain of salt.
We've heard of other operators writing bad checks too in the industry. It's getting, obviously a lot of people talk about not getting paid, and the whole thing is rough. It's real.
And no one celebrates that. We may talk about being happy that Skymint himself is probably not going to be around for too much, but nobody celebrates the fact that employees have problems.
Hey, we've had Katie.
That's great.
We've had Katie from Green Stem and Red Setter Farm, Grows Bro Show, and many other things. Baked Tater on here, Joe Sullivan. A lot of really good participants today, but it's nice to see Al Witt check in. It's been a little bit for me, and he's got a great story. We should probably share that one of these days on this show, because people should know about a lot of the stuff he went through and what he's doing now.
The true cannabis hero.
Yeah.
Hi, Katie. We really have a
Green Stem.
Really good bunch of followers, really good bunch of listeners and viewers all the time, But and this is one of the reasons why, and we talk about, Richard says they do for sure, meaning that former employees do for sure talk about their previous boss, their previous employer. This is the best reason for you to treat your employees right.
Rob, of course, got a lot of great shows too, talking about this stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
Cannabis lifestyles. There's a whole bunch of them. So thank you, Rob. Sorry,
It's
Rick.
nice. No, it's great. Continue to talk about all the wonderful people that are watching us, because it just makes me smile every time we have someone that I didn't recognize was watching, to know that they're here.
As
But,
for Rare, I am hearing that Rare Muskegon and Rare Bay City is closed permanently. Just seen that online though.
Yeah, heard about that also.
And I like Rare. I think most of us like Patrick Frakes. Great guy, good company, a lot of female leadership. They had an interesting vision. I've never had a reason to
The
know.
aeroponics. Yep.
Yeah, that's right. The cool way to
Unique growing
evolve.
way. Yep.
But it's a challenging market now.
And I will give them a little credit too, because unlike many other companies, and they did start off somewhere else and bring investment money to the state, they decided that it was important to at least learn about what was going on the ground here in Michigan a little bit, and they demonstrated that wasn't the course for everybody. That's for sure. So.
They've been supportive of our causes. When we have charities and people from outstate just turn their nose up at the things that we think are important, like, expungements. Oh, well, those are pretty freaking important to us. And if you treat us like that, we got this for you. So this is what happens. This is what happens when people from other cultures come to our culture and then try to make us conform to their standards. We resist and we don't do it. So I remember when the industry first started, especially in the medical industry, pre-MMFLA in 14 and 15 and even 13, all these bros from Colorado, backwards baseball caps, knew everything about cannabis, blah, blah, blah. They'd flunked out of Colorado school, so they came to Michigan, right? And a lot of great growers were discovered that way, but also a lot of people were led astray, and a lot of investment dollars were lost. And people got soured on the industry that I thought were going to really make it, because they got some really bad advice from some guy who never ties his shoes. So
Yeah. Hey, quick poll: is Joe Sullivan glitchy, or is everybody else?
if you respond in the comments, Jamie will be able to say it. Yeah, corporate came to our medical caregiver party. It's true. But by the same token, it was inevitable this was going to happen. And what we tried to do is structure a system where the medical was respected as much as possible. You've heard us talk here on the show about our 2014 effort to have a medical cannabis business system put in place in Michigan, supplied by caregiver cannabis, with limited grows and all the rest of that stuff. And that went right to the very last minute of the lame duck session and was defeated. And since then, we haven't had nearly as much influence over the direction of some things.
We have more people in place aware of who should be weighing in and looking out for the red flags of people trying to ram, big changes to the laws through and that type of stuff that we had to deal with last session. So I don't necessarily believe we get great stuff through this session that we might have been, working on, but I also don't believe that we're up against, this same type of major challenges or peeling back of rights and things like that we were last session either.
The Senate Civil Rights Committee or whatever is going to take up a bill today, or tomorrow rather, about removing an old law that bans lascivious cohabitation by adults, which I assume was something about, unmarried men and women living together dating back to the 1800s. This is how boring the legislature.
It used to be necessary to have to go back and look at that stuff, though.
Yeah, this is how boring the legislature is this year. They don't have a lot of agreement with their Republican counterparts, so they're just flunking along at a bunch of nonsense things.
Ineffective government. In the meantime, they're burning through our fucking tax dollars, putting it in their pockets, not doing a job. We're not getting anything for our services, and it's wrong. It's not right.
Well, it's been dysfunctional for a long time. It's been really corrupt. There were some changes made coming into this session. So the new districts just got started. There's a lot of freshman lawmakers there. We'll see if the machine's big enough just to keep it fucked up, or if we get any, positive change here moving forward. I hope that we get some positive change. I hope that people are more accountable to their constituents now, that there aren't gerrymandered districts. but we'll see.
What was interesting to see, the big change from the election was that we had a Democratic majority in the House and the Senate and then the governorship. And most laws just require a 50% majority to pass. So you would think that they would be moving things forward. Now they have been doing things like, adding LGBTQ plus issues to the Elliott Larson, Civil Rights Act, and things like removing bullshit laws off the book against sodomy and things like that. Going through
There's gun stuff too that's causing some stress in reaction to MSU, school shootings, et cetera.
Yeah. So they have taken on some big issues. I don't want to seem like we're suggesting that they're totally just doofuscious. But man, really, there are so many other things I think that could be demanding. When I look at one of their schedules and it's only got 2 bills on there and they're both just nonsense bills, I'm thinking, you have an hour for a committee and you only have 2 bills to consider. You're going to dismiss after 20 minutes. Where's my extra 40? You're cheating the people. Why are you not talking about more bills? Why are you not putting in a full hour in that committee? Why are you just lowballing us? So,
and I will say too that I won't get into too many details because I don't know to what extent it's being discussed. Not as a big deal, but I've been reached out to by some offices looking to work on cannabis issues. Just like what's going on, or I have this idea. What do you think about it? And one with an idea is so far away from anything that's necessary or obviously immediately in the discussion of the things that those of us have been having the discussion around Lansing for a long time are still talking about from last session or what might be possible this session and that type of thing. So there's this whole round of information that's needed again in the legislature, but instead of that creating an easier situation to kind of run roughshod through them, I think there is going to be an opportunity this session to get some good information.
The Michigan Cannabis Industry Association is the state's largest cannabis industry association. I believe Meds Cafe, Jake, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys at Meds Cafe are part of MICIA, are you not? Certainly. So, there's a big value to being able to have your views expressed through something like that. Those of us who are activists, Anton Harb with standing up for veterans, Jamie and Josie standing up for expungements with Great Lakes Expungement Network, and the things that I do on different levels with Normal and other things. We don't have lobbyists to stand up for us. We actually have to go to Lansing and do it ourselves. And it's wonderful when they reach out to us to ask our assistance before we have to be responsive to something that's already gone down. It's so much easier if we can help shape language to make it proper before it's put into a bill format than to try and fix language after it's already been put in bill format. Just so much easier.
We had to be reactionary a lot last session, even after really asking people over and over again, please let us know when there's cannabis issues to be discussed.
Yep.
In some cases it did matter, but a lot of the time it did not. And we were stuck having to, respond as opposed to be a part of the process.
I see a lot of news coverage now focused on new store openings and new product launches and which celebrity is coming to town next week. Ric Flair, the big wrestling legend, is coming, and I've seen it covered in almost every newspaper. But I think the real interesting stories are not getting covered by those same papers. They're interested in the cannabis industry, but only in a superficial way, not in a real serious way. We have stories of healing that could be shared. We have stories of economic benefit to communities because of individual companies that just went out of their way to actually embrace things. That shit should be shared. We have a lot of wonderful features of our industry and of course our community as well too, the industry and the community being two separate things. But I feel like the news coverage that we're being given now is exclusively limited to horror stories like the Skymint thing and just regurgitating press releases that they get off EIN Press.
Sensational stuff. Yeah.
Which was more substantive.
Well, I know that, Rick, I happen to know that you've requested, appropriately, as I've brought up also to the department and others, there's a lot of talk about these issues, so to speak, with caregivers and what's happening in the neighborhood and all this kind of stuff. But, how many complaints are there? What's happening? Who's calling into the department and saying that this issue is happening or that issue is happening? And, why aren't they letting people know that while all this is being discussed, there's nobody actually really calling in about caregiver activity as being an issue?
That's the truth. We've seen some very high profile busts recently, like 5,700 plants at some place not too long ago. And those will continue to happen, but I don't think anyone classifies that as a caregiver situation. We had Paul Talenda on here not that long ago, and Paul said he is still getting calls from caregivers who are still getting hassled by their local police. That is still going on, but we're really not seeing it the focus on caregivers any longer. I think at this point, 72 plants is really below the radar for many of these local enforcement guys. They're really looking at the bigger things, and rightly so, as far as I'm concerned.
If they're going to, yeah, they're going to spend the time to go do it. Let's look at the stuff that's not demonstrably within that system, at least.
Al Witt mentions he got $600,000 for his local community. Al Witt.
This is of Gaylord.
Yep, cannabis entrepreneur, rated, went to the Slam, came out, became a Gaylord city council person or township council person, and it recruited others to do the same. And now Gaylord is one of the most cannabis-friendly communities that we have in the state, which is a complete changeover from where they were at 6-7 years ago. And $600,000 were awarded to that community because they host cannabis retailers and cannabis micro businesses. This year, every cannabis retailer or micro business brought about $50,000 to both the city and the county that they were in, and that money could be used for anything that they want. There's no restriction on what they put it into. I know.
Yeah, more law enforcement if they think that they need it. So we don't
Andy
really
LaCruz,
have to give it directly from MRTMA generated funds to the police.
Andy LaCruz said in Hazel Park their money is dedicated towards the retirement funds for city employees. Because when they said yes to these cannabis businesses, they were having real concerns about whether they could support their pensioners. Now they can, I mean, kind of a unique use for it. And it's not maybe the best thing I can think of to use for it, but it certainly solved a problem for the city, and they're smiling all the way to the bank. So
many of those little townships up north have never had that much money in the bank. And that was just off of their local application fees, not even the sharing yet.
It's
a true story.
It's just Gaylord. I know the story that Al Witt has is, worth a documentary in and of itself, but that tax money going to small towns in Michigan is definitely benefiting more towns than just Gaylord.
And still we see just a very small number of communities adopting pro-cannabis business ordinances. Jake, you keep an eye on this because you're looking for new opportunities with meds. We really don't see a whole lot of new communities coming online, do we?
Not a whole lot from my understanding. I know Meds is generally in the business of trying to acquire currently operating licenses as it stands right now. I know they have some projects that have been licensed or in the process of getting built out, so that would obviously be a new license, not something that they've assumed. But I know we've all been attentive with Detroit and happy to see progress go on there. So I think there's some pluses to take in the last 3 months going into 2023.
It's weird. I mean, so the next store is for meds is Big Rapids. If everything continues as it is, that is a small saturated market, as are many around the state, because of the lack of more and more communities, coming on board and creating some more space for the more. And the saturation that we see could get eased up a little bit by it, too. It's not just market saturation; it's how it gets through, and those concentrations make it, gum it up a little bit.
You mentioned 2 locations of Rare that shut down, Bay City, and where was the second one, Jake?
Muskegon.
Now, both of those are some very competitive markets with a lot of retail stores in there, too. It's very possible that some of those retailers that close up reopen.
Maybe there's some, like I know that Loom shut down a couple of their just medical licenses for a while, knowing that they were going to hold their place and see if they could move into the AU license and then resume operation again, or maybe some same idea but changing market conditions. I'm not sure, but like that represents like the challenge that's out there. That it's a perfect example. Somebody like Jake, who's kind of charged with going out and finding that combination of quality and price in this really competitive time, has to maneuver around those situations, quite a bit. And Lowell's got a little bit more of an action going on with it, but it still kind of fits because there's so much competition around. Here's a Loom right down the street.
7 or 8 shops here in Lowell, where we're calling from.
Lowell's a small town. For people who are not familiar with Michigan, if you're watching from another state, Lowell is a very small community, and that oftentimes happens when they become permissive.
Yeah, small community and but bigger than most of the other ones that we have. So that's the kind of scenario that we move around in, and because of we mentioned it earlier,
Okay.
Jake's experiences and his insight into what's going on now, is really a big part of how we meet those weird conditions consistently.
Border towns traditionally have a hard time finding business to come there because if you're half of your base lives in another state, then that's additional accounting issues. There's all kinds of problems. But the border towns, small ones that could never attract businesses, are really doing very well with cannabis as they attract purchasers from Ohio, Indiana, Illinois to the south, and then Wisconsin and Minnesota to the west. And I hear as far away as the Dakotas. So sometimes people will drive all the way from the Dakotas just to get to an Upper Peninsula Michigan retail store. And I can remember being hungry at one time, and I would have driven 4 hours to get decent cannabis. I swear to God, I would have.
We heard about people in Washington, D.C. when we were down there for the High Times event who regularly were driving to Michigan.
Yeah.
To get cannabis.
So the opportunity that we present with the industry is so great. The community has always been in existence. I think the cannabis community has been in every city in Michigan for decades, right? We've always had stoners. We've always had people that care about other stoners. So it's always been out there, even when it was, an unregulated illegal market. That's always been there. But the retail locations and the cultivation opportunities and all the rest of that really has brought a lot of prosperity to places where it really didn't before. We talked about Diamonddale. I'm sure there's a bunch of people that work in that big old cultivation facility in Diamonddale, and it will kind of suck if it ends up being if they get as the proceedings are already underway. So,
and speaking on the cannabis community here in Michigan, I think it's totally bolstered by the robust caregiver system that was in place before adult use, and I think that hurts these hugely overcapitalized companies like Skymint that want an uneducated consumer base. They benefit from an uneducated consumer base. The more their consumers don't understand what good cannabis is and good cannabis smells like and good cannabis looks like and the effects of good cannabis and the medicine that's associated or the medicinal practices that are associated with good cannabis, the more the customer base just doesn't know about it or care to learn about it, the better these huge, overly capitalized, overproducing, mid-growing companies can just thrive. So I think it's a testament to how well the consumer base in Michigan is educated and how well we do appreciate the medicinal values of cannabis that you can't really get off on the Michigan customer base like you may be able to in a different state. Like not to throw any names in the bus, but I don't know. I just wanted to give props to our consumers here in Michigan because I think a lot of the times they are thrown under the bus saying, oh, they only shop on THC percentage and so on and so forth. But I do think we do make strides in the right direction. I think as a whole, we are in a good spot in terms of educated consumer bases.
The caregiver market spurred a bunch of retail locations stretching from 2009 to essentially 2017, and even a little bit after that too. And we really, in that market where Jamie and I both participated in with Third Coast and I had Big Daddy's, we really trained a lot of Michigan consumers to not be afraid of retail and also to use things that are not THC percentage or a test result on a piece of paper to decide whether the cannabis is good for you. It's one of the reasons why THC inflation, the false potency numbers being produced by some labs, really detrimental to the store that sells cannabis that has that THC potency. Because I know whether it's good cannabis or not. I know when it feels right to me. And if someone tells me, dude, this is fire, bro, this is so fire, I don't really remember the brand. I don't really remember that guy's name, but I remember where I bought it. And if the fire turns out to be just a spark, then I'm not going back. I'm not gonna entertain that concept. So we became educated on how to buy cannabis using our nose, and using our heads to evaluate what it did for us. And no, little black and white numbers on a page are going to tell us differently.
And the caregiver system was designed for there to be thousands and thousands of small gardens, and in one hand, more difficult for federal government to root it out if there's a big change in the weather, depending on, how some administration may go, back then. And I think as a result, plus a lot of people came from all over with good genetics and knew how to grow. And a lot of our people spent some time figuring it out. And we got a lot of good growers growing a lot of different kinds of cannabis in Michigan. I'm sure that's happened elsewhere, but that definitely took place here. And I think we're still seeing the benefits from that.
Remember the first time I heard someone paid $100 for a clone? I thought they were fucking insane. I'm like, no way, you pay $100 for that? For something that big? But no, nowadays, some clones and seed stock of some prized genetics go for way more than that. It's a way different industry. But in the early days, some of those benchmarks that we thought were remarkable just really aren't even meaningful anymore.
And when we talk about the THC inflation as well, there was I think it was Legal Nifty or whatever, had a question talking about Hannah proposing the reference lab. And I know, Rick, we've had several conversations with Director Hannah about it, and we support it. And I believe 4.4 million was what he's proposing. That was with all of the to build it out, employ it, all that, the whole kit and caboodle. And the reference lab will go a long way, I believe, to stamping out some of the bullshit that we're seeing as far as THC inflation goes. So another step that he's taken to kind of correct the system, and I see that one being a big step.
I think, of course, the director mentioned that during the Thursday CRA meeting, mentioned the reference lab and how it would be constructed just a short distance away from where we're holding that meeting in Lansing at their facility there. And he's right. I mean, if you can instantly, or if you can in short order have potency verified or disabused, have pesticide testing done on an immediate basis where you don't have to have 4 different crazy labs doing it and then wait for all 4 results to come back and then homogenize the averages of all these numbers and blah, blah, blah. It would certainly streamline enforcement as far as I'm concerned. One of the things that bothers me is feeling like some of the numbers that are being represented on the packaging don't reflect what's inside the product itself. I think as a consumer advocate, I think that's the biggest lie, right? Is that when I see a test result, I know it may very well not be true any longer. And if they are able to use the reference lab to get a more honest and fair numerical system on the packaging itself, then we all win from that.
And remediation labeling every month, right, Rick?
So, I mean,
bring it up. We're still doing it.
About that.
I was going to bring it up based on this conversation too, because just to reiterate what we've said many times, I know many people argue, depending on the type of remediation process, that doesn't really hurt anything, or it might, some people even argue it makes it better, and whatever their definition of that is, and all that kind of stuff. But the consumers, by and large, are not saying, I don't care about any of that. Just want to know if it was done or not.
Yep.
We're talking about it, and if it's done, put a sticker on it, or check the box off, or whatever.
Anton and I are part of a consumer group that meet with the Cannabis Regulatory Agency every month, and we are constantly hounding on this. They actually had that as a special focus of one of their previous quarterly meetings, where they took a lot of testimony from people and basically just said, at some point, if it's been remediated, I want you to have some kind of a symbol on there, so I know at a glance when I look at the package whether or not it's been zapped by radiation. And there's still no progress on that. That is a very controversial one. The fact of the matter is Michigan's testing standards are so tough that almost all outdoor cannabis, we're told by the experts, has to be remediated or else it's not saleable, because remediation kills the tiny little microbes and small crawly things that get on the cannabis when it grows. So remediation labeling might actually be a huge financial hit to that particular industry. So I can see why they might hesitate.
And Joe points out there's a lot of people who really don't give a shit either, which is true. But there are also conscientious consumers that would like to, and many of these people will get there, I think, too, as they learn.
Thanks for that feedback, Joe, because you're right. Oftentimes we talking heads on these talk shows, we're specialists. We have an industry knowledge level that's far greater than the average consumer. And so the things that are important to us may not necessarily transfer down to the regular consumer level.
And Joe owns a store in Bay City. Joe, I'm sorry, man, I forgot the name of the store. I know it's where Joss was in Bay City.
Oh, it's a fun name too.
Yeah, throw that back up here so we can let people know, Joe.
Why don't they throw trash away like any good grower? Because instead of having a grower make that decision, a bean counter in some city far, far away makes that decision. He says you can't get rid of that product that represents X number of dollars of investment that we have, so we have to recoup that. So you have to zap it, or you have to turn it into oil, which also kills all those microbes and nasty critters too. You have to find some way to use it. Breaking Buds, that's it. I knew it was a fun name.
Great name.
Yeah.
Breaking Buds is Joe Sullivan's place in Bay City. Yes.
What's cool is at that same location where I first met Joe, I went with Rick, was
Joss.
invited there to be part of an event that Joe invited him. I just went with Rick, so I got to meet Joe at that time, but it was at this location in Bay City called Joss, Jas, maybe. And he's still there. I mean, different things happen, and he got that location back and has his own store there now.
Well, let's give some praise to Joe for his own personal journey here after having surgery. He's in the gym every day. He's dropping pounds. He's looking great. Joe has really made a big difference in his life by exercising his free will and having some resolve. And he really looks good. Congratulations, Joe. All the way around, man. You've extended your life, I believe, by taking this action. Good for you. I'm inspired, but not enough to actually do anything. So, to what degree was that inspiration? Yeah. And Richard mentions, as long as people have no idea what you're talking about, then the idea will be misconstrued. And, when we're talking about remediation, it's not an easy subject to grasp. People don't know.
I'll say Dave Cobb gave me some cannabis at an event a couple of weeks ago, and it was outdoor, but it was really good. And he spends a lot of time on his soil and taking care of them, and it showed up. So thank you very much for that, Dave.
Jimmy gets a lot of tributes, People are like, oh, look at
Yeah, one today.
Nice.
It was sitting here for like 2 months. Kept on saying, what's going on with that?
Would you please take this out of our store? Sure, I will. Thanks. No.
Everybody wanted it really bad, but he held on to it for him. So.
Yeah. So I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of things going on in this industry that I wish, though, as I mentioned before, I wish the media would cover. We have some great stories. Helping out families, thousands of turkeys being given away at the Thanksgiving time. We got a little bit of coverage for that, but I don't think nearly the amount that was needed. And the things that individual organizations do, Great Lakes, Expungement Network, Michigan Cannabis Freedom Coalition, Anton and his veterans groups. You're really talking about making a difference in people's lives. I would like that to be the focus of some news reporting.
Yeah, speaking of that, Anton, if you don't mind, since Rick just brought it up, why don't you mention the kind of stuff you're working on and an update on what's happening?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, I guess some good news. So trying to create free access to medicine for veterans has been a passion project of mine for a long time now, right? We have a lot of veterans who either can't afford it or they just don't have access. And I know recently, working along with Redemption and a whole host, we've built kind of a cool coalition to bring out what we're calling the Veteran Access Program. And we had we had a veteran. He had come to me a couple of months ago, was in need, just couldn't afford product, and definitely had medical conditions that could have benefited from it. And, through our network that we've built, shout out to Nature's Relief. We were able to figure out that veteran's location, and we were able to get that veteran hooked up with a decent amount of product, actually. And, we made that individual's day. So the program is working. We haven't officially launched it yet. We're still working on the webpage and whatnot. But the reality is we have veterans. They're approaching us. We are hooking them up wherever they're located with either a dispensary or a cultivator or whatever, and we're getting that individual medicine. So that was kind of it was cool to see that kind of come to fruition. The goal was for 2023 to help 25 veterans, and we're going to be able to do that on a monthly basis. We'll have an allotment of cannabis products, And again, that's, when I had approached Ryan Basor and the Redemption guys with the idea, they were obviously all about it. And we got, Jerry Millen from Greenhouse. We got Nature's Relief, Meds Cafe. We were talking to, get you guys on board. And just, it was important to me to get the good actors or the people in the community who I know are passionate about veterans, because I'll tell you, some of the folks I had come across, I wasn't completely crazy about why did they want to become involved, what their involvement was. And if I didn't feel like they were 100% in it for the veterans, like I'm not putting my name on that. And I've been very clear about that. And that was heard throughout the community. From the initial idea that I had from previous organizations I had dealt with, I went and still decided to pursue my mission, because I know that I can leverage my relationships that I have throughout the industry. And it was a resounding, yes, they would like to help. So now we got it to where veterans are getting helped. So that 25 number, from what I keep hearing from people that want to participate, they're like, why isn't it 250? Why isn't it 500? So, and the reality is, when I had approached CRA to get permission to do it, California had to actually pass specific legislation to allow them to have what they call a compassion program. Director Hanna, I was able to approach Director Hanna, and within 30 seconds, he had green lighted what we were doing by allowing the products that people wish to donate, licensees wish to donate, to be pennied out through metrics. So we had a viable way to now take licensed product and allow licensees to then, set that product aside, and then through metric, we're able to penny it out. And now the veterans are getting free meds into their hands. So that was something pretty cool. I was pretty happy to see that. And the other thing I've been working on from the veteran standpoint, most people know for months now I've been dealing with, we had the $40 million veteran grant. And that was set aside through the MRTMA, which set aside $20 million over 2 years. So for a total of $40 million derived through cannabis excise taxes. So this was the people voted to set this money aside, and this was the people's money that was directly went into this. And we had 3 grantees, the MAPS Foundation, Wayne State University, and U of M were all allotted different amounts of money. Wayne State was who had gotten the most money. I think it was in the neighborhood of $19.25 million. They were given money over 2 years. And, one of the things I believe in is government accountability, holding government accountable, and not only holding government accountable, but holding those accountable who decide to take money from the government. In this case would be the grantees. And, the more I dug into it, I had identified some issues specifically regarding the types of research projects that these universities were proposing. And I had identified that they didn't quite fit within the law the way it was written. And I had raised several concerns about this. And, I was heard, right? CRA was more than responsive, and were able to work with the universities who heard my concerns along with other veterans in the community, and got these folks more on track. Now, the MAPS Foundation is the closest to actually getting an FDA-approved clinical trial. I'm actually supposed to go down to Washington, D.C. over the next month or so to argue for they call it a self-titration protocol. Basically, veterans should be able to smoke and medicate when they feel they need to. The FDA specifically wants patients to follow a particular protocol of, take 5 puffs 3 times a day, kind of like how you would with a prescription medication. And we know that that's not reality. That's not how cannabis is used. So, and U of M has, I believe they've submitted their protocol. Whether it gets approved or not, that's left to be seen. And Wayne State has been working on, I think they got 3 or 4 projects that they're trying to get off the ground. So we had identified these initial problems with the types of research that they were going to be doing, because they have to be FDA approved clinical trials. nobody wants to jump through those hoops. So, but you ain't got a choice. You're going to have to do it because you took the money, and that's what the law says. So the second component to this whole thing is now we're starting to get on track with the types of research. And not only has CRA been good about communicating, they host these quarterly meetings to hear us out and allow the universities to kind of present updates to us so we can hear what it is they're doing. But now the next component is how you spending the money, right? We got millions of dollars floating out there, and grant money is notoriously like one of the gentlemen, like rats at the cheese, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? Everybody wants a piece. So now what we're trying to focus on is making sure that these organizations are staying within their contractual obligations for the money that they received. And from what we're seeing, so a good buddy of mine, Josh Parrish with Vet Life, which is a 501c3 veteran organization here in Michigan, him and I are good friends, and we kind of took this project on because when we talk about money and we talk about millions of dollars, there is room for error there, and we want to make sure it's being spent properly. So currently we actually have we had a CPA and an independent audit a grant writer basically go through all these proposed numbers because they gobbledygook the fuck out of the numbers. Okay, when you're talking about millions of dollars, and when we break that down, we still haven't seen line item budgets, right? And that's my things. I want to see every fucking penny you're spending because I want to see where it's going. So right now, what I'm focusing on is contractually speaking, when they took the money from CRA, there's a 10% cap on administrative costs, right? So they can't spend more than 10% on administrative costs, which to us means salary and fringe, right? To administer something takes people. To take those people, you must pay them. That is a salary, right? And from what we're seeing, MAPS and U of M are within that 10%. Wayne State is almost at 40%. 40% of the grant money, our fucking tax money, they're trying to stick in their pockets for salary and fringe. And they're open about it. Their last meeting that they had, I did not attend that meeting, but I was filled in by those who were there. Apparently there was a gentleman from Wayne State who said it's not unheard of to have 65% of grant money go towards salary and fringe, which we cannot back that data up. And apparently that individual was asked to back that up and wasn't able to do that at the time. So right now I'm working, and again, CRA has been awesome. They've been wonderful, kind of like in the middle, kind of communicating and helping facilitate this. But if Wayne State really is 30% over where they're supposed to be, they're going to be trimming some money off the salaries. That's my goal now. And I've been told several different things of why that doesn't count, that they are within their rights to spend that money. I contend it to be no. And that is what we're going to pursue. And hey, you know what? We have these conversations and we will reach resolution. I'm confident in that. So that's kind of where we're at with that.
Right on. Thanks, man. I was in some of those meetings too that you described, and I don't want to, kick them too much, but the Wayne State people were grasping for straws to try to get to that money. You're talking about really smart people that
I'm not
coming up with these very bizarre interpretations of things to get to this money.
Publicly, I'm not a Wayne State fan. I've been trying to be unbiased. I'm trying to be unbiased and treat each organization fairly from an unbiased perspective, but I keep seeing issues with Wayne State. I don't like what they're doing. I'm going to call them out. I got 5 years to be a thorn in their ass. 5 years, and I plan to spend every second of that holding them accountable. And as long as they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, I support it. If they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, I'm gonna crawl up their ass, and I'm gonna make it known that it shouldn't be that way. So either way, like I said, we're gonna facilitate this through the proper protocols, just like I always have been, and make sure that this is being done properly. And I think at the end of the day, everybody wants that to happen.
Yeah, we do. It's $40 million. We frequently talk to people about this, and they say that's a huge amount of grant for veterans studies. That's an amazing amount of money. that's the better reason for us to be good stewards of that cash and not just close our eyes and hope they do the right thing.
And then to reiterate and clarify that study has to be done via the standards in the law, which is the FDA standards, and that is so that the Veterans Administration will take it seriously and would use it as the basis to actually change their policy, whereas the studies that were starting to get funded would not reach that standard for them, and it might offer some good information, but it wouldn't do its intended purpose of trying to change that policy. Maybe other laws change around it and it becomes easier in the meantime, possibly, but
Maybe
we'll see.
Like, I support the research. I support even Wayne State. I support them doing good work. There's some good minds there, and they're doing good things. I just don't want to see dollars and cents cloud everybody's judgment like they normally do. And 40% of your grant money on salary and fringe, and you admit to that you're doing it, that is fucked up. And that's not going to happen as long as I am sucking oxygen. I plan to protest that highly. And if it turns out contractually that they can do that, well, then there ain't shit I can say. But I'm going to definitely speak up my displeasure and see where it goes.
Right on. And Josh Covert's joined us again, CEO of Meds Cafe. We're at the Lowell store right now. Manager was with us a couple of weeks ago, right behind the computer, trying to give us challenges. And,
What's up, Josh?
What's up, Josh?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. I wish I could have stayed out at the store. I was there earlier today, but I had to leave. I came back home. We had a photo shoot for Lenny Sinclair here at my house with Nancy, her plant room. So I got to meet Lenny
cool.
Sinclair and hang out with her for a little bit. So just got done doing that and hopped on the show. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, excellent. Is she still hanging around?
No, she left just a little bit ago. But it was an honor to meet Lenny. I'd never met Lenny before, but she was here for probably about an hour, and we hung out, got to smoke a few joints. I saw her new line of pre-rolls that she has out, the infused pre-rolls, and we got to try some of them. The 10s are beautiful with the different images from her rock photography, and then the pre-rolls were really good too. So that was really neat, and got to hang out for a little bit. Yeah,
we can't wait to have those in Meds Cafe right in time for Hash Bash.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
And
Lenny's another one of those gems of the industry that a lot of people just don't know.
And have been kind of overlooked. John got, she was right there working with John in the beginning when we talked about the kickoff of the modern movement here in Michigan. And she helped to facilitate a lot of stuff after he had to go to jail. And she has a big part of that history, and it gets not talked about as much, but I'm glad that there's some spotlight coming back on her now.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Her photography was groundbreaking, and some of the things that she documented with her camera, times we'll never see again. Artists that are long gone. So valuable to have her around still. And she has some of the best stories. Remember, she was there with the White Panthers and John being put in prison and all of that stuff. She was right there in the thick of it. So she has the best stories, because when John was away, she tells some amazing things about
that. They've been divorced for like 44 years, and they still, still cross paths quite a bit. Still care about each other, keep an eye on what's going on. So
her photography is, like you mentioned, Rick said, it's amazing. I sat down and was able to look at some of her images today and was able to pick out a series of them that I'm ordering for to have in our Meds Cafe stores, and we're going to put them up as art, but also offer them for sale to customers. And then if somebody buys one, I'm just going to order a replacement, and hopefully that can be a nice little revenue stream for Lenny, and also provide artwork for our stores. So I was kind of had fun looking through her pictures today and picking out some.
I'd look at some of the stores I visit as a representative of Redemption Cannabis and just in my own personal travels. And I don't think there's any place on the wall for a revolutionary rock photography from 1969 in these places. They're so sanitary and Apple Store like. They don't have a lot of character. Are they clean and impressive? Do they have cool little chandelier type lights? Yeah, sure. But where's your soul, man? When you put a Lenny Sinclair on your wall, I think you gain a little bit of soul.
I'd like to think so.
Very good point, Rick.
Yep. I've never been to the store the dude abides. People tell me that it is very much like a headshot.
They're helping out with the expungement stuff.
Yep. Josie mentioned
Props
that on
for
our
that.
show last week. Yep, and that she loved the vibe there. It's possible for stores to have vibe. Okay, you can have vibe.
Speaking of that, I want to give a little update here. There is the oh man, hold on. What the hell's going on? Okay. Sorry, give me 1 second. A little update on the sneaker ball here.
Coming up this weekend.
It's coming up this weekend. It is sold out, VIP and regular tickets, I believe. And before there any auction items or any other donations, it stands at $52,000, $52,035. Already a huge success. A lot of great people contributing in a lot of different ways for this one, and all the money gets to go help people get their records expunged because Redemption Foundation takes care of all the administrative costs for Glenn. So that's a great one.
Going to be a good time. Can't
We'll all
wait.
be there. In fact, Anton, are you going to be there?
I'm gonna be,
Oh, yeah. Yep. I'll
Okay.
be there. Mhm.
All of us
I got
on
some
this,
Custom shoes. I got some custom shoes made for this one. Oh, yeah. I'll be there.
about some 1979.
I'll be there, and that'll be the.
issues.
Go ahead, Josh.
I was gonna say I'm gonna be debuting my mullet on. That's gonna be the first reveal. Will be for the sneaker ball, so I'm gonna be there with a suit, some sneakers, and a really fresh mullet. So I'm excited.
A mullet
And that helped raise $1,100 for the Great Lakes Expungement Network for me to cut my hair into a mullet. And I'm actually, it's not just a mullet. The cool part is I was $500. I'd cut my hair in a mullet. For an extra $500, I'd perm the back. And so since we raised $1,100, the back's getting permed. So I'm going to have the fresh suit, the sneakers, the mullet with a perm in the back. So I've never had a perm. So I'm kind of excited here. This is going to be cool.
What is your plans for facial hair, Josh?
I'm thinking the Fu Manchu with some pretty sweet sideburns, but
Nice.
I'm still figuring that part out.
Yeah, don't make any hasty changes about this, man. No, you got a good thing going there already. So be
yeah,
real cautious.
People reiterate what Josh just said. He put up a like a donation, charity donation thing on Facebook and put these conditions in, and people responded, and that's why he's doing this. So he raised over $1,000 in addition for help people get their records expunged, which is really cool.
But people respond to that when they like you, and you've been around for a long time, Josh, and you've been doing great work before Meds Cafe as an attorney, and now since with Meds Cafe and doing things that you do. So a lot of that's a tribute to, who you are.
Thanks. Yeah. I thought it'd be a fun way to raise some money, so.
And it worked out.
Nobody's
That's
giving
going to be
any
cool.
runoff.
Looking forward to that. People should be looking out shortly after that event begins. If you're not going, start looking on social media. Get a
Some
glimpse
photos of Josh with his back perm,
the made over Josh Covert.
curly
Yeah.
backside. All right.
I've told people, though, I think when I cut the mullet, I'm not going to go by Josh, at least for that week or two when I got the mullet. I'm going to do some method acting. I'm going to be a different person. I'm going to dress a little different. I'm going to eat different foods. I'm going to have a different name. I'm kind of debating between Clyde and Wade right now as to what my name will be. But I don't know. We'll
There's a lot
see.
of layers to this project. It keeps on
Oh
unfolding.
yeah, it's deep.
Maybe to round out the look. Sure. Yeah. Go full
Yeah.
hick.
You gotta do it up. So
Carpenter pants with an actual hammer hanging down. Sure. Yeah. That's,
yeah.
What's the distinction in your mind? What separates Clyde from Wade?
I that's a good question. I think both are
Perm.
suitable names. I'm
Right, yeah.
kind of on the fence for either one, really, and I think both could be fitting. So
That's great.
we'll see. But I'm all about the method acting. I did this once before. I had long hair just like this, and I was in college, and I had to go on an internship out west at a ski resort, and they had to cut your hair to work out at Vail Resorts back then. And so I knew I had to cut my hair, so I figured if I was going to cut it, I might as well have fun with it. So I rocked a mullet for a week, and 2000. It was 2000, the year 2000. So like 23 years ago. And I rocked the mullet for a week just for fun. And it kind of I wanted to bring it back and try it again, and this time raise some money for it. But when I did the same thing then, and when I cut my mullet for a week, I behaved like I was someone else for like a week. So I don't know, method acting.
And how did the ladies like the mullet back then? I got to know.
Oh yeah, it worked pretty well back then. I tell people I had a lot of mullitude, and I think mullitude, it goes a long ways. Let's say a little mullitude goes a long ways.
I remember
Everything old is new again. It's 2023. Maybe some mullitude is needed in American society nowadays.
Might be, yeah.
In the aughts, in the early website days, there were a few websites dedicated to mullet sightings, and people would go around and capture people with mullets on video and then put it up on their website.
My picture was submitted to that one of those websites back then. Yeah, yeah. We were aware of that website when my buddies and I were registered to get the mullet. Yeah, so
there you go.
If you look people look on my Facebook, you'll see pictures of my mullet from 2000. I've got pictures posted up, so if anybody looks, you'll see it. I had pictures with the PBR in my hand and everything. It was pretty nice. So
mullet, not a popular headwear for criminal defense attorneys, though. Oftentimes.
No. I think it would work well in front of a jury, though. Like if I came in with the right swag and a mullet, like my client's going to do all right. There's some of that happens in front of a jury. That just magic, that mullet magic, I think would help.
And a proud mullet, yeah.
Mullet
Look at your long hair.
Yeah.
No, we're excited.
That's gonna be part of the fun night.
Yeah. And that's at the Hotbox Social from 5 to 10 again. As Jamie mentioned, it is sold out, but those of you who have tickets, you are going to enjoy yourself immensely. I can guarantee that. It will be a parade of shoes. I've got special shoes I bought just for the place. I didn't have them, painted up special or anything, but I bought shoes.
No, Anton actually hired a cobbler. Started working on them a couple of months ago. They're just finishing up in time for the event.
They'll be here.
Elves and a
They'll be here tomorrow. I can't wait. Yeah. It'll look good.
No, it's fun, right?
People can still donate, by the way. I mean, you don't have to, rely on somebody getting their hair cut and do a mullet or anything. You can just donate if you want to, and it all is very helpful.
What a fantastic total!
Charmy weighing in.
I'm not a cobbler, I'm a crumble.
Charmy's going to be at the event.
Charmy will be there. It's going to be a nice gathering just from the people I know. And we're talking about, I think, about nearly 200 altogether. Small space, too. It's going to
be a lot of people.
Take it to capacity.
The sneaker ball, too. So I expect people will be dressing up. I will be dressing up because it's a ball. So I think it'll be fun. The intersection of sneaker culture and cannabis is how
there's like Cushion Kicks podcast, which is kind of based on that concept, just kind of directly. I believe those guys are going to be there too, which would make sense.
I think so too. Yes,
they're all being organized with Jesse.
So there you go. Yeah, so their concepts are in there. That makes sense. And the sneaker ball is like you dressed up, but you're wearing like sneaker as the shoe.
Tennis shoes. If you're from Michigan, tennis shoes. Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
Yep. Pop tennis shoes. That's what we call it. But yeah, that's the fun part.
See how long that novelty lasts.
It's been a long time coming too. We've been the sneaker ball's been planned for a long time, and it's coming to fruition now. But boy, I've been anticipating this for a while. And I've been to the Hotbox Social before. It's a nice place. In Michigan, there are only 2 or 3 social consumption lounges which are licensed and operating, and Hotbox Social in Hazel Park is one of those. So it's nice to support, a small business that's just kind of a startup, less than a year old, I believe. And they do special events specifically.
It's going to start being open regularly on Mondays and Tuesdays.
That's what I heard too. Yeah, that's what I heard
Understand
too. So, but it's nice to be able to support that. And of course, Sons and Daughters United, Great Lakes Expungement Network, the Redemption Foundation, all the different charities that are in the house will be able to celebrate. So, and as auctioneer, I'm going to have the microphone for quite a while, so I get to say a bunch of shit. So that's fun too.
Oh, you're the auctioneer, huh, Rick?
I am the auctioneer. I've done it before. It's pretty fun.
There you go.
Yeah.
So Richard's having some fun with the balls reference.
Making balls. Tape down, baby. You know,
This show
You
used
do
to
you.
be like first couple of years, it was like all dick joking, and every once in a while there was some little discussion on, cannabis politics. Now it's kind of the other way around. So it's
Ray Reyes is so great, so funny. What an amazing musician and a great human being he is. He's constantly on. He's like one of those guys that has coffee running through his veins instead
a
of
positive vibe most of the time.
And 3/4 of what he says is a dick joke. So it's so hilarious. We just
When
had
he was on regularly, that's what the show then consisted of.
we were broadcasting live from the Cave Radio Studios in what city was that? Redford, Michigan, and we would drive by, pick up Ray, bring him into the studio, and do a couple of hours of trying to be serious, but really just laughing our way through 2 hours of great times.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit, and unfortunately, what happened to that is what happened to a lot of things at that time.
Yeah, we tried a
learned
little
to
bit
be able to
afterward
do
with
it this remote way.
plexiglass.
Now I
We
broadcast
recently
from the
did
library.
We went
Jamie's
back
like,
and helped out with a fundraiser though, and did a broadcast from there recently. That was kind of fun. It had a couple of glitches to get started, but it was cool.
It's fun, supporting small business like Cave Radio. Cave Radio is a small business, and Hotbox Social is a small business. Supporting charities and small business, that's what we've talked about the whole time today. Meds Cafe is an up and coming line here in the Michigan cannabis retail environment, and we support them too. Putting your effort and your work behind the people that you believe in. That's what we're talking about today. And also the people that, you don't believe in, and people that attacked you, like Skymint. We can talk about their demise with a little smile on our face, but the majority of the time we spent today was supporting people and companies that are doing good things for the cannabis community. I'm not sure in what line you're saying that's what she said, Rick, but I'm just going to laugh because I love those jokes. So good job, Richard. Thank you.
I think there's a slight delay, so it's always kind of funny to think about what they. Oh, here we go. Here he's being more specific.
Small business.
Yeah, there's been a lot of demise, I guess. What do you think old Steve Linder's up to right now? He's
Probably still quaking in his boots, hoping that the probe of the finance problems of the Michigan legislature don't lead to his door any longer. He certainly was implicated in a lot of some bad dealings that were happening in the Michigan legislature. Some questionable transfers of funds. And with both a state and a federal investigation going forth, you never know what they might uncover that would lead to charges. So, yep.
no, thank you. No, thank you. I wouldn't want to be on the end of that.
No, there's, and by the way, Charmy, calls attention to Josie's doing advocacy. We all used to be advocates. That's true. We didn't have any corporate connections. It's just to go out, except for Jamie. It's always been corporate Jamie. But
I've been trying to figure out the best ways to get the last dime off the backs of the sick and dying.
he's been using that phrase for 10 years.
Stores how to do that.
Yeah, but the reality is, in today's world, we need people to stand up. We need people to still be brave, whether they have a corporate affiliation or not. We need people to make a stand when rights are infringed upon or people are being disadvantaged.
Yeah, Flourish made a flip in their position, and I remember being at the event last summer and a couple of employees come up to Rick and myself and describing how they're really trying to lobby from the inside to get them to change their position.
And corporate culture, which is a good thing. You can do it, and you have to be convincing, but you can do it. We've seen that before. I think some people have good hearts, and that continues forth. Some people put business interests first, and then they realize that they have to express their good heart too.
Here's a guy with a good heart right here.
Yeah.
Alex, store manager here in Lowell.
See you guys.
He's on his way out.
Have a good one.
Thanks
So
for coming
dedicated, he bails as soon as he possibly can.
on. Got just a ton of stories of success
He
here.
is a-
People who really deserve what they got.
Yep.
So you can focus on those.
Are you guys concerned at all with mid-sized banks and kind of the collapse we're seeing with SVB, so on and so forth, and how that could potentially implicate cannabis not being able to bank with the big four banks?
Silicon Valley was, at least I originally perceived it as a bank failure that was strictly related to the crypto market, the unregulated currency. The huge run on Silicon Valley, and it croaked out. But the other one, what was the second one? Jake Serenity.
The crypto bank is Silvergate Capital.
Silvergate. Sorry.
They were the first domino to fall, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But
Yeah.
As of the weekend, I mean, as of Friday, they're in receivership. Or Silicon Valley Bank. But over the weekend, the federal, the FDIC just bear hugged all of their accounts and essentially said,
Right.
One-to-one deposits over $250,000 will be insured. But the reason why I ask is essentially just because, obviously a lot of cannabis enterprises here in Michigan are banking with smaller size banks. And if there's a mass exodus, just because people don't feel like their deposits are secured one-to-one, it could propose adverse problems to the cannabis industry in particular, because we're unable to bank with Big Four, which is where a lot of the capital is flowing towards, based on what I understand.
Thursday of this week, the Cannabis Regulatory Agency will have a special session with Dart Bank to explain banking options. And Dart's a small bank here in Michigan that has really made a name for themselves amongst the cannabis industry. But that's a valid concern, Jake, whether or not small banks are going to be taken seriously now, or whether they'll be a little bit more hesitant. I'm always worried when people pull their money out of small banks and put it in the JP Morgans and the big Chases and all the rest of that, because I love the small businesses. I love credit unions. I love small banks. And I think
Well,
that's
there were some regulatory things changed during the last administration that ripened this scenario that can be fixed for future stuff too.
Yeah.
So Anton, I know you got split. Just want to make sure you get some time to get some last word in.
For sure. Yeah, I got to split a little early. Got the kid duty. I appreciate everybody. Josh, nice to see you. And it was nice to see everybody. We always appreciate and value these conversations. This is what needs to be said. And this is one of the only forums I think that we have to really hash this shit out. So I appreciate everybody, and I will see you all on Saturday. I can't wait.
Great.
Peace, everybody.
Take care.
Take care.
Thanks a lot, Anton. See you then,
Yep.
man.
Peace.
Yeah, and Jake mentions a very valid problem. Not all banks will take our money.
Yeah.
Richard says, "Take my bank, please." We might feel that way, but you might be stuck in a banking situation that you don't like, but you can't get out because there's just nobody else willing to take your capital. Happens. Josh, you know what we're talking about.
Pay a lot of extra money for this extra auditing and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it involves more than just cannabis handling businesses, but businesses affiliated with cannabis also run into that problem. When my law firm, we had to switch banks, and we were banking with Huntington, and we got a letter one day saying that our account was identified as high risk and that we could no longer bank with Huntington, and that applied to my personal account and the business account that we had with Huntington, and that was simply because we were a cannabis law firm. And so then we ended up having to then go to Dart Bank, that was mentioned, because they're one of the banks that actually represent businesses that are involved with cannabis. And then we had to pay higher fees at that point. We didn't pay maybe the same fees that a cannabis handling business pays, but we certainly paid more than other small businesses as a law firm. And so that's something that, a lot of people have to think about if they're, working in cannabis, even if they're not, plant touching, so to speak.
There's been a concern about whether or not a health insurance policy should be made available to people that run cannabis companies, and whether or not retirement accounts, which are oftentimes federally insured or have federal fetters or regulations at some point, some of those retirement accounts might be unavailable to people that work in the cannabis industry. But to your point, Josh, about even ancillary industries still being painted with this tarry brush.
Yeah.
It's just so anti-2023. Are we not past that in Michigan now? Come on, motherfuckers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the
I have seen
Act 280E, all the, there's a few things to really normalize this stuff.
Yeah. And as far as banking goes, though, I have seen some improvements in Michigan. As more banks have come online, the prices have gotten more competitive. I should say the fees, the monthly fees. And so, at Meds Cafe, we're currently paying half of what we were. And that's just really because there's been more opportunities and more other banks offering, cannabis banking, and it's brought the prices down. So we're still paying way more than any other industry, but it is getting better as more banks opt in and also, allow cannabis businesses.
Great. We really do have an opportunity here. As I mentioned, we're growing from 2.3 to 2.8 to 2.85, something like that, this year as projected by the CRA. That's a lot of bread. You would think that banks would be falling all over themselves to get our money, but in reality, they're very hesitant, and as you mentioned, oftentimes charge extra fees. So
the craziest thing is too, they'll take your money and they'll charge you fees, and they have no problem doing that. And they see the bank accounts and your cash flow and things are going good. But then you go to them and say, hey, can I have a normal business loan to maybe acquire a piece of property or a piece of equipment? And the banks will be like, no, or they're very hard to work with when it comes to lending, because you're a cannabis business. And I think that's strange, is the same banks that sometimes you give your money to then are sometimes reluctant to then, lend money to you. And I don't see that in other industries, that same kind of scrutiny when it comes to lending money. And hopefully that improves too.
This is just the gradual process of discarding the drug war hysteria surrounding cannabis, and it's not instantaneous. We've had a lot of freedoms and a lot of privileges, that we fought for, but there are so many ways in which the cannabis is still demonized, treated differently. Child protective services, the smell of cannabis in your automobile when you're pulled over. There's just so many ways in which we're still fighting that fight. As Sharmi mentioned, we're all activists at heart, and sometimes activists by necessity. So,
Hey, man. Yeah, we still got to step up and do stuff from time to time.
there's the Jose.
Best. We were just talking about your sneaker ball, Josie. We're so very much looking forward to going this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just show the number again if I can.
I'm gonna get a pair of
somehow. Yeah, I'm sure I did. Yes, of course.
Want to get a pair of tennis shoes that are painted like feet. So I'm wearing shoes, but people think I'm barefoot.
Weird.
Yeah, weird is fun.
I agree.
There we go. It's just since Josie came on, we'll just throw this back up there too to
There you go.
reflect a lot of hard work, good ideas, good people helping out. Her ability to inspire, cares about others.
Yeah.
All the things to be successful, really taking on a project like this.
Go, Josie.
Yep. That was good. And the one Benton Harbor was good. This one is this one has exceeded it.
The black tie social that was not really a black tie social, right?
Yep.
So much fun. It was a great time. I don't like having to wear a tuxedo, so when someone says black tie to me, I'm like, and then Joe, no, that's not what it means. I'm like, cool.
You mentioned the Blazes competition.
Yeah, so let's make sure everybody knows if somebody thinks somebody's feeling a little cocky and they'd like to go try to smoke Brenda Blaze, Josie's mom, under the table, there's a standing offer for, if you can do it, you get $20 and a half ounce. And I think that might have been raised to $40 circumstantially.
I got 5 on it. I believe in Brenda.
I know who I'm betting on. Yeah.
Fucking A.
Kyle's going to
Kyle
be there from Lighten Up, right near Rick's place in Flint area.
I'll be seeing Kyle on Thursday. So, yeah. But it is fun with head movement. I don't know. It is fun. Yeah,
too late. I got Charmy's warning up there a little bit too late. Sorry.
Oh,
So Charmy's saying that she is responsible for the name Brenda Blaze, and then is wondering if we know why that is. And I don't actually know, other than Blaze meaning smoke a lot and stuff. And oh yeah, we actually. So she's saying this Ohio hot tub hotel that was actually in Michigan, just over the Ohio border. We were in Ohio earlier that day for an event. We all stayed just south of Monroe.
you know, I want to see those pictures actually.
Those are funny. Yeah.
Yeah. Took pictures in the mirror while you were in the hot tub. Don't talk about it unless you.
It was on. Everybody was clothed and laying on the bed, and there were mirrors, but there wasn't the tub in there.
Yep. People laying in different directions. It was fun.
Okay. So there's a cliffhanger that Brenda, she's trying to tell us the story, but she of course doesn't just complete it. Canapalooza this summer.
Canapalooza.
They had ashtrays. It was Ryan. I'm sure Robin appreciates this public announcement that she was snoring. But it's part of the story, so I guess it has to be told. There you go.
That sounds like a very Brenda thing
Everybody
to do.
left the room. I was sitting on the couch with Brenda, and Robin was snoring in the chair in front of us, and I was napping, and Brenda smacked me with her cane and said, "Hey, wake up and smoke this." It was 4:30 in the morning, and I yelled, "Brenda Blaze, it's 4:30." There it is. That was the origin of Brenda Blaze. Good to know. I didn't know the origin story of that.
Oh.
My favorite superhero.
That's great.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah,
the
that
fun
was,
part of the
that
community.
was Kevin Spittler put on an event in Toledo, and a lot of us went down for it.
I think I was the MC of that event, the Toledo House.
Yeah, you were actually. Yep.
Mhm. Yeah.
One of the
Who
speakers.
did we have
there.
on that was? Who was such a rigid bitch? Who was the worst person in the
Yeah,
world?
I remember that. She came out from California or something. It was like
Beverly Hills Cannabis Club.
I
Her
forgot
name is. Oh no, she was bad.
Cheryl Schumann, was that right? I'm sorry.
That's it exactly. Cheryl Schumann. Oh, she was so. The attendance there was good, but she was on a little bit later in the day, so there were a lot of it had sort of petered out. Yep, Charmy remembers. And she stood on the stage and said, get over here. If everybody doesn't come over here right now, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to leave. And she was real. She was going to just walk right off. And she pitched her little stuff. She had her gold Beverly Hills Cannabis Club ashtray she was trying to sell and other stuff. She was just a wench.
That was weird. I saw Ed Rosenthal freak out like that one time on stage too. Were you there for that? Somebody like had some incense or something like that, and he was on stage and it like wafted up kind of close to him, and he just flipped out. It was really weird.
That was at one of Rory's events, I think.
Yeah, or he was at one of the rallies or something like that. I don't remember. Yeah, I think what it was. But he's come into town a few times, and a lot of that time it's been cool, But that was kind of a weird thing. Been on the show a couple times too.
Legendary grower source, Ed Rosenthal.
And he got upset. A couple growers in the audience, I remember, were kind of like challenging him a little bit in some of the stuff he was saying, and they were being nice about it. They were just like, "Don't we look at this way now?" Or kind of like a little updated version. And he didn't want to be contradicted, so that didn't work out well for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, Cheryl Schumann was a little prima donna-ish too. That whole display. That was. I remember that being funnier than anything for me, anyway.
Yeah, you weren't on stage with her. I'm standing there because I'm the MC, so I had to give her the mic, and then I had to stay there and wait for her to finish her shtick, and then get the mic back from her. I couldn't run.
You were the entertainment, yeah.
Oh my God, that was the first hemp expo in the state of Ohio's history.
Man, we've had Kevin on. We'll have him on again, but it doesn't hurt to reflect on what a great job that guy's done. In Michigan, he was exemplary in the way he ran his, store before there was statewide direction and
Muscular Dystrophy Association donations and all that stuff.
Yeah, community outreach. He looked out for good cannabis. He was the first one. Everything tested consistently. It was controversial testing stuff, but nonetheless, he was providing that information where very few else were. Yeah, he did a good job, and he went to Toledo and opened up
Toledo Hemp Center,
THC.
and does great things there too. Blankets for the homeless, barbecue for the children, where they take over a whole block one day every year for the neighborhood kids. Nice. Ever heard of the Marijuana Mansion in California? I have not personally. Anyone else?
I'm not familiar with it. No.
It's not on Pornhub.
Sounds interesting.
What's the further significance of it?
I think Richard will tell us. Marijuana Mansion. It's like Hefner's Mansion. That would be badass.
What happens in the grotto stays in the grotto.
Except the stuff that gets caught in the filter. Right. Yeah.
I think they're on top of proper cleaning techniques. I hope so.
Don't shine a black light anywhere there. The Marijuana Mansion, that's just... There are many mansions built on marijuana dollars in California. So that makes me think it's a mansion crafted out of marijuana.
Last night on Medical Mondays showed a picture of a cannabis church in Denver, which was a nice building. And on their lawn, they had this metal sculpture that's under a lot of scrutiny and controversy from the surrounding neighborhood.
What's it show? What's the sculpture of?
It's a modern-looking metal sculpture. It's called the Defender, and it kind of looks like a lot of sharp angles and everything, and it kind of does look like a thing or a machine capable of defending. It's got like this little pink pencil that jets out, which could be like a barrel of a gun or something. And other these sharp angles and mirrors and colored glass around it. Otherwise, very futuristic looking. It's like fuchsia. So it kind of stands out. But it's called the Defender. Oh, man, and I remember that cannabis church, or it was called...
Is it the Fledge?
The Fledge is cool. That's a separate, like, co-op-y type, location.
There was a cool cannabis.
But there was this church, I remember. Yeah, I don't think that thing is around anymore, though.
Yeah, there was one on Washington, right at the end of Washington. It was the cannabis church. I remember that.
South or north?
What side? South. Oh, it was just down past where the Greens had their spot, but down where Washington kind of runs into those fast food restaurants. There was a few dispensaries there, and there was the church was back there. I remember all about it.
forgot that guy's name. It was like a couple kind of. Really, really cool.
Mhm.
Well, there's so many people that have moved in and out of this industry, of this community, that really were cool and left a mark on them.
So things weren't sustainable for some people. They weren't as fucked up as we were, and just got hyper focused and let the rest of the world fall apart around us as we stayed hooked on cannabis stuff.
Oh, we missed the bus.
Cannabis is life. What else is there?
Cannabis is life. We got Trish. She's been doing a lot of work on a lot of things, as usual, weedsters and so forth, but helping out a lot as we're homing in on Hash Bash weekend, doing a lot of stuff, and always good to have you on, Trish. You're always welcome. You get involved in the comments, but anytime you want to come on here, of course, I just want to reiterate, you can just come on here and talk with us.
Oh, thanks.
And here you are.
My oldest son was here, and I had to give him my attention.
Oh, it's all good.
Hash Bash. So there's a lot going on with that. Of course, a lot of people know about the football game that's going to be going on at the same time. The city has changed it so that way no one can park on the main road, start circling around the diag. The parking is going to be kind of horrible. So if you're driving out from out of state, or if you're driving from Lansing or the Flint area or whatever, and you guys can figure out how to carpool there, that would be a great idea to do. Plus, it's a much greener way of doing things. But
you can go to the page too and see some maps of some other ideas you've put out there. I've seen the graphics that you put out, so to help people out.
Yep, and there's also a link for an email funnel, and I've been setting up emails to send to everybody that will have links for parking. Also has links for Airbnbs and hotels that still have rooms available, which
Cool.
It's going to be such a big weekend. Hash Bash Cup's going to be going on at the same time, plus the game, plus Monroe Street Fair.
Yeah.
So if you're wanting to come, Friday night would be the best night to get a room or a place to stay there. So those are some of the things that will make it complicated to get there. I know that they shut down. Is it I-94? I'll have to look at it for sure, but there was a horrible accident at a bridge somewhere on the way through, and they closed the expressway there off indefinitely. So it's going to make it harder to come from Kalamazoo, an area like that. So, but I'll put that out in that newsletter. So if you go to Hash Bash's Facebook page, you'll find that link there. You can also look in our bio. There will be a tree link there, and you can sign up for that there. There will also be links for you to get information during the event too as well. So this just to help people out to make it a little bit more comfortable event for them.
That is much appreciated, and I didn't realize the parking was compromised around there. It's usually where we reserve a few spots to make sure people like the sound and the other components we need with some equipment and stuff.
Yeah.
You get there, I'll have to see what that looks like when I go to the transportation office and try to figure out how we do that.
Yeah, it'd be a good idea, especially for anybody that's going to be unloading. Maybe if there was a rented spot for the day or something like that, where people could do pick up and drop off of equipment and whatnot, because that's a long walk. But
Shit.
yeah, other than that, we got a lot of great sponsors that have been helping with, with the event and whatnot. We do have some different restaurants and whatnot in Ann Arbor that will have coupons and whatnot in the itinerary.
Oh, cool.
And so far, I think there's 2 there. We have about 13 dispensaries and a few medical card places.
You take your Hash Bash treasure map and the guide itinerary and get deals and free stuff all over the city.
Yep. So between that itinerary and the map, it's going to be a pretty good place for people to be. They want cheap stuff. Then of course,
I'm really looking forward to it.
playing.
And that football game is the spring game. It's the Maize and Blue game, just the yearly exhibition, within the University of Michigan. It's not an official game or anything, but which normally like 100,000 people come into town for. But it does get like 30,000 or 40,000. It just adds to the whole
Right. That's why they had to shut the main roads down to make sure that emergency vehicles can get through just between the game and then both of the other two events. And then, of course, their normal traffic. Ann Arbor's always busy on the weekend. There's a lot of fun things to do there. So it's going to be busy. It's going to be one to remember. Just make sure you prepare for it, whether it's going to be
Wear the
warm or
right
cold.
shoes. Wear the right shoes because you
That's
do a
right.
lot of standing on your feet, a lot of walking.
You might do a little bit more if you want to just park and leave it there for all day.
Yeah.
And it's going to be the 52nd Hash Bash. Pay tribute to a lot of the old schoolers who've been at it for decades, trying to work on cannabis reform, in part to try to keep people out of jail. And then we're also going to recognize people are still in jail for this. And of course, recognize people who have done some good work in the last year, those who have perspective on these issues and stuff. The lawyers, Josh is going to weigh in this year, along with Matt Abel and Tom Levine and some other, Michael Camorn and some other lawyers. We'll have some political figures there. And John himself, with Adam's not here now, but obviously Adam and Richard and Melody Carr and Rev Steve and a lot of people who represent many years of working at this. So
Is
definitely,
Tim Beck coming out?
Tim Beck is coming, yeah, and Chuck Ream
Cool. I wasn't sure for that or not.
and Dave Burkett, who has recorded every year and has a website with the archive of many years of Hash Bash on it. Been around the block, recognizing a lot of those guys.
Yep.
So,
Trying to bring the history back.
I asked Christine Landino, but she couldn't make it. She just has too much going on, but she was appreciative of it, and we'll have her on the show here to talk about her history sometime too.
Yeah, for sure. If not, we can try to work with her next year too. This is something that I feel like would be a benefit. Obviously there's a lot of people that went through a lot of problems, a lot of money, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of traveling to be where we are today, and a lot of these, I'm not going to say kids, but a lot of the younger people don't understand the story behind a lot of things that happen with Hash Bash. I mean, there's a reason for everybody, I suppose, especially when it comes to the cannabis community. But just being able to bring to light that the problems that were happening in the past are the same ones that we're dealing with in the future. It's just been hidden from them in so many ways, just the same way that it was hidden from our parents, and between racism and systematic racism and cruel cannabis laws and overregulation.
And they were spouting off at really tough times to be open about this stuff. Exactly. They went through, like, we came on with a foundation that was built, and there was some naivety too. There was
right.
didn't expect such backlash necessarily, talking about stuff that kind of made sense, but little
like the whole idea of like hippies, for example, like my idea of what a hippie is not somebody who had flowers and danced around a field. Most of the hippies I knew were usually walking out and protesting and being pretty radical. I've at least known quite a few of my own.
Position on something.
Yeah, for sure.
Smell of patchouli.
Yeah, possibly. It was cool. That's cool then, I guess. But so it's just this experience, this itinerary is going to have a lot of history and information that people are going to be able to take in. And then, of course, the next year, it's going to be nice to be able to share these legends and give them the respect they deserve each year, that we'll be able to line some people up and put these biographies out.
So you've done a lot of great work on just research, facilitating, designing, even making contacts, all that kind of stuff. Just really appreciate it. It's a big part of the event this year, and you've covered a lot of that ground. So thank you very much. Everybody should know that.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
A lot of contribution, yeah. We're getting close. Josh, is there anything you want to get in before we?
No, just thanks for having me on again, and this is always fun to talk to all you guys.
Yeah, but we'll do it again, and we'll also look forward to your new look this weekend coming up. Yeah,
the mullet. Maybe we can and then I'll figure out my name by then, and then hopefully.
Right on. Yeah, he's gonna have
I'll let you guys know.
Alter ego name, be sporting a mullet, different stuff done with some perm stuff, maybe some stuff with the beard. It's gonna be cool. Clyde or Wade potentially.
Yeah.
Trish, anything you want to add?
Possibly. There we go. Nope. Just make sure that you prepare for this hash bash this year, because you never know whether you're going to freeze or if it's going to be too hot. And it's going to be a fun day. So make sure that you can preserve your energy, make sure you drink water and all that good stuff. And then also, we got a lot of good movement going on with Jaden's Law. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, in the near future.
Jaden himself will address the crowd too. I talked to Amy about that earlier.
Yeah, he's my homeboy. Him and I talk about it, and I was like, Jay, you should talk this year. And he was like, I don't know. Cool. And then Amy asked him, and he was like, okay. So it's gonna be cool.
What a great
He's
story!
Thought about it.
More people should know about that. And I know that we're anxious. We've been on a parcel where we can't consume cannabis at all. You have a beautiful joint sitting right there. So, but Jake, just in case you actually want to say something, you're not so anxious that you need to get out of here.
Whatever. Just wanted to thank everyone on the call now and Anton for having me. Just a great opportunity. Appreciate everyone on the call for moving boulders for this industry to be where it's at today. The opportunity that I have to work in it is such a blessing. So I just want to thank everyone and appreciate to make hash bash and adult use cannabis and medical use cannabis. Really appreciate it.
Right on, man. Thanks for your contribution in this current version of what's going on too. You do a great job and also much appreciated. Rick, you want to wind us up?
Sure. I'll say this. We've had a lot of conversation today about some wonderful things, wonderful people, wonderful events coming up, Sneaker Ball, Hash Bash, Monroe Street Fair. So many different ways for you to get out and participate in this industry. And we create those. The people on this call create those, and other well-intended and really a little crazy and insane people create these opportunities for you. Springtime is upon us. Get out and do it. Be part of the community. We're stronger together. And you know what? We're also a lot of fun. I think you'll enjoy it. Break the mold, get away from the sofa, and enjoy some fresh air. That's my love.
Another good one, Rick. Thank you very much. And Jazz Cabbage Cafe will be back next week. Thanks, everybody.